The blue light from the communication screen filled the dark room. Ambassador John Carter sat at his desk, reading the same message for the fourth time. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he did not notice. The words on the screen were, "Too important. John was 52 years old and had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years. He had gray hair at his temples and kind blue eyes that had seen many difficult situations. Right now, those eyes showed worry. The message he was reading could mean war or peace for all of humanity. The message came from the Zephyrians. They were a race of tall, strong reptile people who lived on 7 different worlds. For the past 2 years, they had been taking over space that humans claimed as their own. 3 human colonies were already cut off from Earth. No ships could reach them. The people living there were trapped and scared. John pressed a button on his desk. "Lisa, please come to my office right away." Commander Lisa Brooks was John's security chief. She was 45 years old, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had been a soldier for 23 years before becoming a diplomat's bodyguard. She knew how to spot trouble before it started. Lisa walked into John's office 3 minutes later. She saw the worry on his face right away. "What's wrong, sir?" John turned the screen toward her. "Read this." Lisa read the message carefully. Her face grew more serious with each word. The message was written in simple trade language that all space races used when talking to each other. It said, "To the human ambassador John Carter, the Zephyrian Council requests your presence at peace talks. Location, Nexus Station, Sector 7. Time, in 7 days. Terms, complete disarmament. No weapons allowed. No military ships. No guards with guns. Come alone with small diplomatic team only. This is your final chance to avoid war." Lisa looked up from the screen. "This doesn't feel right, sir." "Nobody holds peace talks like this." John nodded. "That's what I thought too, but we don't have many choices." Lisa walked to the window of John's office. Outside, she could see the stars and the shape of their ship, the Harmony. It was not a warship. It was built for diplomacy, with meeting rooms and guest quarters. But it also had some weapons, just in case. "Tell me about Nexus Station," John said. Lisa turned back to him. "It's old, built by a race called the Builders. About 1,000 years ago. Nobody knows what happened to the Builders. The station is neutral ground now. All races can trade there safely. It has its own security force and strict rules about fighting." "What kind of rules?" "No weapons except. For the station guards, no military ships can dock there. No fighting allowed anywhere on the station. If you break the rules, you get thrown out and banned forever." John stood up and walked to his own window. He could see other human ships in the distance. They were cargo ships and passenger ships, not warships. Earth's real military fleet was far away, protecting the home system. "The Zephyrians have been building up their war fleet for months," John said. "Our spies report at least 300 ships. We have maybe 50 that could fight them. That's why they want to meet at Nexus Station," Lisa said. "They know we can't bring our ships there. They think we'll be helpless." John's personal assistant, Captain Steve Morris, knocked on the door. He was a young man, only 28 years old, with black hair and smart brown eyes. He had graduated from the Space Academy just 5 years ago. "Come in, Steve," John called. Steve entered carrying a datapad. "Sir, I have more information about the Zephyrian message. They sent copies to all the major news networks. The whole galaxy knows about this meeting now." "That means we can't back down," Lisa said. "If we don't show up, we'll look weak. Other races might think they can push humans around too." John sat back down at his desk. He felt tired. Being an ambassador was harder than people thought. 1. Wrong decision could mean millions of people would die in a war. What do we know about the Zephyrian negotiator? He asked. Steve looked at his datapad. His name is Sekalon. He's their top diplomat. Very smart, very dangerous. He's never lost. A negotiation. The Zephyrians always get what they want when he's involved. What about their military commander, General Vextar? He's even more dangerous than Sekalon. 8 feet tall, covered in scales that change color when he's angry. He's won every battle he's ever fought. Some people say he enjoys killing. Lisa crossed her arms. They're bringing their best warrior to peace talks. That tells us everything we need to know about their real plans. John thought about the 3 human colonies that were cut off. There were almost 2 million people living there. Men, women, and children who were counting on him to save them. If these peace talks failed, those people might never see their families on Earth again. There's something else, sir, Steve said quietly. Our intelligence teams intercepted some Zephyrian communications. They've been moving ships toward Nexus Station for the past week, much more than they need for a simple diplomatic meeting. How many ships? Lisa asked. At least 30. All of them warships. John felt a cold fear in his stomach. This was definitely a trap. The Zephyrians were planning something bad. But what choice did humanity have? If they didn't go to the talks, the Zephyrians would attack anyway. At least this way, there was a small chance for peace. Sir, Lisa said, I don't like this. Everything about it feels wrong. The location, the timing, the no weapons rule. It's like they're setting us up. I know, John said, but we have to try. Those 2 million colonists are depending on us. John walked to a cabinet in his office and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. He poured himself a small glass and offered. Some to Lisa and Steve. They both shook their heads. My grandfather fought in the 3rd World War, John said, taking a sip. He used to tell me that sometimes the only way to avoid a big fight is to walk into a small one. Your grandfather was a wise man, Lisa said, but he probably didn't have to deal with aliens who could crush him with their bare hands. John almost smiled. Lisa always knew how to make him feel better, even in bad situations. All right, he sighed. We're going to accept their invitation, but we're going to be smart about it. What do you mean? Steve asked. The Zephyrians think they know what unarmed means. They think no weapons means no danger. They're about to learn that humans see things differently. Lisa raised an eyebrow. What are you planning, sir? I'm planning to save those colonists and show the galaxy that humans are not easy prey. John finished his whiskey and set the glass down. Send a message to the Zephyrians. Tell them we accept their terms. We'll be at Nexus Station in 7 days. And then what? Steve asked. John looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrians were preparing their trap. They thought they had humans figured out. They thought humans were weak and scared. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Then we show them what happens when you corner a human, John said quietly. We might not be the strongest race in the galaxy, but we're definitely the most creative. The shuttle moved slowly through space toward the giant ring structure of Nexus Station. Lieutenant Dan Murphy sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. He was 34 years old and had been flying ships for 12 years. He had flown through asteroid fields and ion storms, but today he felt nervous. First time seeing Nexus Station? Asked Nancy Price from the seat behind him. Nancy was John's diplomatic aide. She was 29 years old with red hair and bright green eyes. She was very smart and could speak 7 different alien languages. She also had a perfect memory for details, which made her very good at her job. Yeah, Dan said, not taking his eyes off the station. It's bigger than I thought it would be. The station was huge. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. The outer ring was 5 miles across and covered with docking bays, shops, restaurants, and hotels. Ships from dozens of different worlds were docked there. Some were sleek and silver, others were rough and blocky. All of them looked strange. To human eyes, Dot Ambassador John Carter sat in the back of the shuttle with his team. Besides Nancy, there was also Rick Johnson, the trade specialist. Rick was 41 years old and knew more about alien business practices than anyone else in human space. He had thick black hair and always wore neat suits, even on spaceships. "Remember," John said as they got closer to the station, "we're here to make peace, not war, but stay alert. The Zephyrians didn't invite us here to be nice." Lisa Brooks checked her datapad one more time. She had spent the past week studying every detail about Nexus Station. She knew where all the exits were, where the security offices were located, and how the station's defense systems worked. "The station has its own security force," she said. "About 200 guards, all from different races. They're well trained, and they take the no-weapons rule very seriously. But they're not soldiers. If real trouble starts, they won't be much." "Help. What about communications?" John asked. "The station has the best communication system in this part of the galaxy," Nancy replied. "We can send messages to Earth instantly. But all communications are monitored by station security. Privacy is not guaranteed." Dan began the docking procedure. The station's traffic control system guided their shuttle to Bay 47, deep inside the civilian section. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see other ships docking nearby. Most of them carried traders and tourists. But John noticed several Zephyrian ships in the military docking section. They were long and dark, with ports along their sides. Even though weapons were not allowed on the station, those ships looked ready for war. "How many Zephyrian ships do you count?" he asked Lisa. Lisa looked through a pair of electronic binoculars. 12 in the military section, but I see at least 6 more in the civilian bays. That's more than they need for a simple diplomatic meeting." The shuttle settled into its docking bay with a soft thud. Don began shutting down the engines while the others gathered their belongings. Everyone had packed light, bringing only what looked like normal diplomatic supplies. John carried a simple briefcase with documents and his personal computer. Nancy had a bag full of translation equipment and communication devices. Rick brought cases of trade samples from Earth, foods, artwork, and manufactured goods that might interest alien buyers. Lisa's luggage looked the most innocent of all. She had a small suitcase with clothes and personal items, plus a larger case than her. Identification papers said contained security equipment for diplomatic protection. The station's scanners would find nothing dangerous in any of their bags. They walked through the docking tunnel and into Nexus Station proper. The first thing that hit them was the smell, a mixture of different alien foods, strange chemicals, and recycled air. The second thing was the noise. Hundreds of different creatures were talking, arguing, and doing business in dozens of languages. The station's main corridor was 50 feet wide and stretched as far as they could see in both directions. The ceiling was high and covered with lights that tried to look like a sky. Shops and restaurants lined both sides of the corridor. Signs in many different languages advertised everything from spaceship parts to exotic foods to information services. "It's like a city in space," Nancy said, looking around with wide eyes. "A city where everyone has secrets," Lisa added quietly. They made their way to the diplomatic quarter, following signs written in the universal trade language. Other beings moved around them. Tall, thin creatures with blue skin, short furry. Beings with large eyes, and things that looked like walking plants. Most ignored the humans, but John noticed a few watching them carefully. The diplomatic quarter was quieter and more formal than the main corridor. The walls were decorated with symbols from all the major spacefaring races. Guards in neutral gray uniforms stood at key positions, watching everyone who passed. "Ambassador Carter?" A voice spoke in heavily accented English. They turned to see a tall, thin creature with bird-like features approaching them. It had yellow feathers covering its body and large, intelligent eyes. This was Administrator Krell, the station's diplomatic coordinator. "Yes, I'm Ambassador Carter," John replied. "Welcome to Nexus Station. I am Administrator Krell. I will be overseeing your negotiations with the Zephyrian delegation." Krell's voice was high and musical, like a bird's song. "The Zephyrians arrived yesterday and are eager to begin talks." "Where will the meetings take place?" John asked. "Conference Room Alpha, in the center of the diplomatic quarter. It is our finest facility, with full recording equipment and translation services." Krell began walking, and the humans followed. The room is completely neutral, with no weapons or surveillance devices beyond what is required for security. They walked past several other conference rooms. Through the transparent walls, John could see other negotiations taking place. In one room, creatures that looked like giant spiders were talking with beings made of what appeared to be living crystal. In another, a group of humans from one of the outer colonies was meeting with traders from the Centauri system. "Here we Krell said, stopping at a large door marked with the symbol for Conference Room Alpha. The room beyond was impressive. It was circular, with a large round table in the center. The walls were covered with screens that could display star maps, documents, or translator information. Comfortable chairs surrounded the table, designed to accommodate beings of different sizes and body types. "The Zephyrian delegation is waiting inside," Krell said. "Shall I announce you?" John looked at his team. Lisa gave him a small nod. Nancy and Rick both looked ready. "Yes, let's meet them." The door slid open, and they walked inside. The Zephyrians were already seated at the far side of the table. John had seen pictures of them before, but meeting them in person was different. They were bigger than he had expected, and their scales seemed to shift color in the room's lights. General Vextar dominated the room just by being there. He was almost 8 feet tall, even while sitting down. His scales were currently a dark green color, but John could see hints of red and gold at the edges. His eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils, and they never blinked. Next to him sat Cyclon, the chief negotiator. He was smaller than the general, but still larger than any human. His scales were a lighter green, and he wore what looked like formal diplomatic robes. When he smiled, John could see rows of sharp teeth. 4 Zephyrian guards stood along the wall behind their leaders. They wore no visible weapons, following station rules, but their claws looked sharp enough to cut through metal. Their muscles bulged under their scales, and they watched the humans like predators watching prey. "Ambassador Carter," Cyclon said in careful English, "we are pleased that you accepted our invitation. Please sit." John and his team took seats across from the Zephyrians. The table was wide enough that the two groups were separated by about 10 feet, but John could still smell the alien's strange, musky odor. "Thank you for arranging this meeting," John said politely. "We hope we can find a peaceful solution to our current disagreement." General Vextar spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and rough, like gravel falling down a metal. "Shoot, there is no disagreement, human. There are only facts. The systems you claim belong to us by right of ancient conquest. You will return them." "With respect, General," John replied, "those systems were uninhabited when human colonists arrived. We have legal claim to them under galactic law." Sekolan held up a clawed hand. "Please, let us not begin with arguments. We have 7 days to reach an understanding. There is time for proper discussion. 7 days? Nancy asked. I thought these talks were scheduled for 3 days. Plans change? Seklan said with another toothy smile. We have much to discuss. It would be unfortunate to rush such important matters. Lisa felt alarm bells going off in her head. Changes to the schedule were never good news in diplomatic situations. Usually, they meant one side was planning something the other side wouldn't like. Of course, John said calmly. We're prepared to stay as long as necessary to reach a fair agreement. The first day of talks went exactly as John had expected. The Zephyrians made demands. The humans made counteroffers. Both sides presented evidence for their claims. Nothing was decided, but that was normal for diplomatic negotiations. What worried John was what he observed outside the formal talks. During breaks, he noticed more. The second day of negotiations started badly and got worse. General Vextar arrived an hour late, his scales showing dark red patches that everyone knew meant anger in Zephyrian body language. When he finally sat down, he slammed a datapad on. The table hard enough to make the humans jump. Your Earth government has sent warships toward our border, he growled. This is an act of war. Ambassador John Carter kept his face calm, but inside he felt confused. Earth's military commanders had promised not to move any ships during the peace talks. General, I have no information about any ship movements. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Seklan said, though his tone was more controlled than the general's. 3 human battleships crossed into disputed space 6 hours ago. They are now only 2 days' travel from our colony world of Vex High. Nancy Price quickly typed on her portable computer. Sir, I'm trying to contact Earth for confirmation, but the communication delays are still in effect. I can't get through. How convenient, General Vextar said with a show of teeth that was definitely not a smile. John felt the first real fear of the mission. If Earth had moved warships, it could only mean they had detected the Zephyrian military buildup around. Nexus Station. His government might be planning a rescue mission. Or worse, they might think the negotiations had already failed and war was inevitable. I give you my word as Earth's representative, John said carefully, that I had no knowledge of any military movements. I came here in good faith to make peace. Good faith? Vextar stood up, his full height making him tower over the seated. Humans, your good faith looks like preparation for war. The morning session ended early when Vextar stormed out, followed by Seklan and their guards. John's team was left alone in the conference room with Administrator Krell, who looked more nervous than usual. This is most unfortunate, Krell chirped. His feathers ruffled with anxiety. Perhaps a cooling-off period would be beneficial. We could resume talks tomorrow. Administrator Krell, John said, I need to contact my government immediately. These alleged ship movements need to be clarified. Of course. But as I mentioned, the communication systems are still undergoing repairs. Perhaps by tomorrow. What exactly is wrong with the communications? Lisa asked, her security training making her suspicious of convenient technical problems. Krell's feathers fluttered more rapidly. Technical difficulties. Very complex. The repair teams are working around the clock. After Krell left, the human team sat in the empty conference room, trying to understand what was happening. Do you think Earth really moved ships? Nancy asked. Maybe, John replied. If our intelligence services detected the Zephyrian buildup here, they might have decided to show force. Or this could be a lie designed to justify whatever the Zephyrians are planning. Rick had been quiet during the morning session, but now he spoke up. I talked to more traders yesterday evening. The pattern is becoming clear. The Zephyrians have been preparing for something big for at least a month. This isn't just about our border dispute. What do you mean? John asked. They've been buying information about human military capabilities, human trade routes, human colony locations. They're planning a full-scale war, not just a border skirmish. Lisa stood up and walked to the conference room's transparent wall. Through it, she could see the station's main corridor. I've been counting Zephyrian faces since we arrived. There are way too many of them here for a simple diplomatic mission. I estimate at least 200, maybe more. 200 diplomats? Nancy asked. No, 200 soldiers pretending to be merchants, tourists, and traders. The afternoon brought more bad news. When they returned to their quarters for lunch, they found Administrator Krell waiting for them with an apologetic expression. I regret to inform you, he said, that due to the current tensions, the station has implemented enhanced security protocols. For your own protection, you are requested to remain in the diplomatic quarter, unless accompanied by station security. Requested or required? John asked. Krell's large eyes blinked rapidly. Required, I'm afraid. The safety of all diplomatic personnel is our highest priority. After Krell left, Lisa immediately began checking their rooms for surveillance devices. She found 3 hidden cameras and 2 audio pickups installed since their arrival. We're prisoners, she said quietly. They're just being polite about it. That evening, their situation became clearer when Dan Murphy contacted them from their shuttle. His voice came through Nancy's short-range communicator, the only device that still seemed to work normally. They've locked down the docking bay. He reported. No ships are allowed to leave without special permission from Station Command. They're saying it's a precaution due to the current military situation. Are you safe? John asked. For now. But there are Zephyrian ships positioned to block all the exits from the docking bay. If we tried to leave, we wouldn't get far. Nancy had been working at her computer all day, trying to find alternative ways to communicate with Earth. Sir, I think I found something. The station's main communication array is working fine. It's only the diplomatic channels that are blocked, but there might be a way around it. What kind of way? The commercial traders use a different system for their business communications. If I can access one of their terminals, I might be able to piggyback a message to Earth. That would require leaving the diplomatic quarter, Lisa pointed out. And we're not supposed to do that without an escort. Then we get an escort, John. Sighed. Rick, you've been talking to traders for 2 days. Do any of them owe you a favor? Rick thought for a moment, then smiled. Actually, yes. There's a Centauri merchant named Zax, who's very interested in Earth coffee. I promised to get him a sample if he helped me understand the local business practices. Perfect. Arrange to. Meet him tomorrow. Make it sound like routine business. Nancy, you'll go with Rick. Try to get that message out. What about the rest of us? Lisa asked. We keep playing the diplomatic game. Act like nothing's wrong. Let them think we don't suspect anything. But their plans changed dramatically the next morning when Administrator Krell arrived with unexpected news. Ambassador Carter, Krell announced, I have received word from your Earth government. They wish to speak with you urgently via secure communication. John felt hope for the first time in days. Excellent. When can we establish the connection? Now, if you wish. But due to security concerns, the communication must take place in the station's secure facility. Only you, no staff members. Lisa immediately felt alarm bells going off. Sir, I don't think you should go anywhere alone. I agree, Nancy said. This could be a trap. But John knew he had no choice. If Earth was trying to contact him, he needed to take the call. The message might contain crucial information about the military situation, or new instructions about how to handle the negotiations. I'll go, he decided. But if I'm not back in 2 hours, assume something's wrong. The secure communication facility was located in the station's command center, far from the diplomatic quarter. Krell led John through corridors he had never seen before, past security checkpoints and restricted areas. The facility is completely private, Krell explained as they walked. No one can listen to your conversation, not even station personnel. They arrived at a small room with no windows and only one door. Inside was a single chair facing a large communication screen. The room felt more like a prison cell than a communication facility. "I'll wait outside," Krell said. "Take as much time as you need." John sat down and activated the communication system. After a few seconds, the screen flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Sarah Thompson, Earth's Secretary of Defense. "John, thank God you're all right," she said. "We've been trying to reach you for 2 days." "Admiral, what's the situation with our ships?" "The Zephyrians claim we've moved battleships toward their territory." Admiral Thompson's expression grew grim. "John, we haven't moved any ships, but our long-range sensors have detected a massive Zephyrian fleet massing near your location. At least 60 warships, maybe more. They're not there for negotiations." John felt his blood turn cold. How massive? Big enough to take over Nexus Station and hold it indefinitely. "John, you need to get out of there now. We're sending a rescue fleet, but they won't arrive for at least 4 days. I can't leave yet. There are still 2 million colonists depending on these negotiations." "John, listen to me carefully. Our intelligence sources have uncovered the Zephyrian plan. They're going to take you and your team hostage. Then they'll demand Earth's complete surrender in exchange for your lives and the lives of everyone on Nexus Station." The communication screen suddenly went black. John tried to reactivate it, but nothing happened. A moment later, the room's single door opened, but it wasn't Administrator Krell who entered. It was General Vextar, flanked by 4 Zephyrian soldiers. "Ambassador Carter," the general said with a predatory smile, "how unfortunate that your communication was interrupted. Technical difficulties, you understand." John stood up slowly, trying to stay calm. "General, I was just finishing my call with Earth. Perhaps we can resume negotiations now that I have updated information." "Oh, we will resume negotiations," Vextar replied. "But under new terms. You see, the situation has changed dramatically." 2 more Zephyrians entered the room. Dragon. The detention area was located in the lower levels of Nexus Station, far from the busy commercial and diplomatic sectors. The rooms were small and basic, designed for holding criminals and troublemakers rather than diplomatic personnel. Each room had a single bed, a small table, and a waste disposal unit. The walls were thick metal, and the doors had electronic locks controlled from a central security station. John Carter found himself in room 7, while his team members were scattered in nearby cells. The Zephyrians had searched them before locking them up, taking away their obvious communication devices and any equipment that looked like it might be used as a weapon. But they had left behind most of their personal belongings, including the items they had brought as diplomatic supplies. That first night in detention, John lay on his narrow bed and thought about their situation. The Zephyrians had control of the station, his team was imprisoned, and Earth was too far away to help. In any normal situation, this would be the end of the story. The hostages would wait helplessly while their government decided whether to give in to the demands or watch them die. But there was something the Zephyrians didn't understand about humans. They had grown up in a galaxy where species were either strong or weak, predator or prey. They couldn't imagine that a species might be both. Around midnight, John heard a soft tapping on the wall next to his bed. 3 short taps, then 2 long ones, then 3 short again. It was Morse code, an ancient human communication method that the Zephyrians probably didn't even know existed. John tapped back, "Who?" The response came immediately. "Lisa, are you hurt? Nitrogen monoxide? You? Fine. Nancy and Rick okay too. Guards change shift every 6 hours. Next change at 060. Don smiled in the darkness. Trust Lisa to already have the guard schedule figured out. He tapped back. Plan? Working on IT. Brought tools. What tools? Everything. John understood. When Lisa had packed her diplomatic security equipment, she hadn't just brought items for protection. She had brought the raw materials for anything they might need to build. The Zephyrians had searched for weapons and communication devices, but they hadn't understood that humans could make both from ordinary supplies. The next morning, the guards brought them a basic breakfast of station standard rations. The food was bland but nutritious, designed to keep prisoners alive and healthy. John noticed that the guards were not Zephyrians, but members of various other species, probably hired security contractors who were being paid to follow orders. Without asking questions, one of the guards, a short, furry creature with large eyes, seemed nervous about the whole situation. When he delivered John's food, he whispered quietly, "Many people on station are scared. Zephyrians have weapons everywhere now. Not supposed to happen here. What's your name?" John asked. "Fick. I work security for 3 years. Never see anything like this. Fick, do you know what happened to Administrator Krell?" The furry being looked around nervously, then whispered even more quietly, "They have him in command center, making him help with station systems. He very scared." That afternoon, during the scheduled exercise period, when prisoners were allowed to walk in the detention area's small recreation room, John's team was able to meet together for the first time since their capture. Lisa had been thinking hard about their situation. "We have advantages they don't know about," she said quietly as they walked in a circle around the room. The guards watched them, but stayed far enough away that they couldn't hear whispered conversations. "What kind of advantages?" Nancy asked. "They think like military commanders. They see a problem. They use force to solve it. They don't understand how humans think." Rick nodded. "I noticed that during our negotiations, everything was about dominance and submission to them. They couldn't understand why we kept trying to find compromises." "Exactly," Lisa continued. "They've captured us, so they think they've won. They're not watching us as carefully as they should, because they can't imagine we're dangerous." "But we don't have any weapons," Nancy pointed out. Lisa smiled. "Nancy, what did you bring in your translation equipment case?" Nancy thought for a moment. "Standard electronics. Signal processors, frequency generators, power cells, electromagnetic field sensors, ... Rick, what's in your trade samples?" "Foods, spices, some industrial chemicals for demonstration purposes, crystalline structures, compressed gases for preservation. And my security kit contains industrial adhesives, cleaning solvents, metal components, and various tools." Lisa's smile grew wider. "Everything we need." John began to understand. "You want to build weapons from our supplies." "Not just weapons. Everything we need to take back control of this situation." Lisa stopped walking and faced the others. "The Zephyrians made a mistake. They left us together, they left us our supplies. And they underestimated what humans can do when they're cornered." That night, they began to work. The guards did change shifts at 0600, as Lisa had observed, and there was a 20-minute gap when the new guards were getting briefed and the old guards were leaving. During that time, the detention area was watched only by automatic sensors that looked for large movements, not small, careful work. Lisa's security kit contained industrial adhesive that was designed for emergency ship repairs. Mixed with the right chemicals from Rick's trade samples, it became a powerful explosive. Nancy's electronic components could be reconfigured into timers, detonators, and remote triggers. The crystalline structures in Rick's collection could be shaped into fragments that would turn the explosive devices into effective weapons. But they needed more than just explosives. They needed a way to disable the station's security systems, a way to communicate with the outside, and a way to coordinate their attack. The station's computer network is the key, Nancy said as she carefully rewired one of her translation devices. If I can access it, I can disable their communications, lock down sections of the station, and maybe even control some of the automated systems. How do we get you access? John asked. Every room in the detention area has a maintenance port. For the automated systems? The port in my room connects to the main network, but it's protected by security protocols. Can you break through them? Nancy grinned. Give me 3 days and the right equipment. Which, thanks to my translation gear, I happen to have. Rick was working on a different problem. We need to know where the Zephyrians are positioned throughout the station, how many soldiers they have, where their command post is, and how they're controlling the civilian population. I might be able to help with that, John said. Fick, the guard who's been bringing my food, seems sympathetic. He's scared of what's happening. Maybe I can convince him to help us. That's risky, Lisa warned. If he reports you to the Zephyrians, we're finished. Everything we're doing is risky. But we need information, and he's our best source. Over the next 2 days, they continued their preparations. Working only during the brief periods when they were unobserved, they assembled an impressive array of improvised equipment. Lisa's explosives were small but powerful, designed to disable specific targets rather than cause massive destruction. Nancy's electronic devices could hack computer systems, jam communications, and create electromagnetic pulses that would disable alien technology. Rick had discovered that several of his food samples contained chemicals that could be turned into smoke bombs and disorienting gases. Mixed with the station's air recycling system, they could create chaos throughout large sections of the facility. But their most important breakthrough came when Nancy successfully hacked into the station's computer network. I'm in, she whispered excitedly during their exercise period on the 3rd day. The Zephyrians have taken over the command center, but they're using the existing security systems rather than replacing them. That means I can access everything. What? Did you find? John asked. There are 87 Zephyrian soldiers on the station, plus their command staff. They've taken control of all the major systems and are holding about 300 station personnel as additional hostages in the commercial sector. What about Administrator Krell? He's alive, but they're forcing him to help them operate the station's systems. He's in the command center with their leadership. Lisa had been planning their attack strategy. If we can create enough chaos, we might be able to turn this around. The Zephyrians are outnumbered by the civilian population, but they're controlling everyone through fear and superior firepower. What if we take away their firepower? Rick asked. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Nancy, can you access the weapon detection systems? Already did. The Zephyrians brought their weapons aboard in pieces, then assembled them once they took control. Most of their equipment is electronic, energy weapons, communication gear, control systems. Then we hit them with an electromagnetic pulse that disables their technology while leaving the station's basic systems running. John could see the plan coming together. How long do we need to prepare? Give me 1 more day to set up the computer infiltration, Nancy said. I want to make sure I can control the station's automated systems when the time comes. I'll need another day to position the explosive charges, Lisa added. We only get 1 chance at this. That evening, John put the most dangerous part of their plan into action. When Fick brought his dinner, John asked quietly, how many of the station's regular security force a? The attack began at 0300 hours, during the deepest part of the station's night cycle, when most beings were asleep and the Zephyrian guards were at their least alert. Nancy had spent 4 days carefully mapping the station's computer systems, and now she was ready to turn those systems against their captors. Working from her detention cell, using equipment that looked like harmless translation devices, she sent her first signal into the station's network. The electromagnetic pulse generator she had built from spare parts sent a carefully targeted burst of energy through the computer system, designed to disable alien military equipment while leaving the station's basic functions intact. Throughout Nexus Station, Zephyrian weapons suddenly went dead. Energy rifles stopped working, communication devices failed, and tactical displays went blank. In the command center, General Vextar watched in alarm as his control systems shut down one by one. "What's happening?" He roared at Administrator. Krell, who had been forced to help the Zephyrians for days, looked confused and frightened. "I don't know. It appears to be some kind of system failure." At the same moment, Lisa's carefully placed explosive charges detonated throughout the detention area. The charges were small and precise, designed to destroy lock mechanisms and security sensors rather than cause casualties. Within seconds, all the human prisoners were free, and the local security systems were offline. John stepped out of his cell to find his team already moving with practiced efficiency. Lisa had distributed improvised weapons to everyone, devices that looked like diplomatic equipment but had been transformed into tools of war. Nancy carried what appeared to be a communication device, but was actually a powerful electronic warfare system. Rick had containers that looked like food samples, but were actually smoke bombs and disorienting gases. Phase 1 complete, Lisa reported as they moved through the detention area. Local security is down, and we're armed. Phase 2, Nancy said, activating her hacked connection to the station's computer network, taking control of life support and automated systems. Throughout the station, the air recycling system began pumping Rick's chemical compounds into areas controlled by Zephyrian soldiers. The compounds weren't deadly, but they created thick, choking smoke that made it almost impossible to see or breathe normally. Emergency lighting shut down in key areas, plunging sections of the station into darkness. At the same time, automated doors began sealing off corridors, trapping groups of Zephyrian soldiers in isolated sections of the station. The public address system, which the Zephyrians had been using to control the civilian population, now broadcast a new message in multiple languages. Attention all civilian personnel. This is Ambassador John Carter of Earth. Take cover immediately. Security forces are retaking the station. Repeat, take cover immediately. Fick had kept his promise. Throughout the commercial and residential sectors, the surviving station security guards began helping civilians evacuate to safe areas. 300 frightened beings who had been held hostage for days suddenly found themselves being led to emergency shelters by their own security forces. In the command center, General Vextar was discovering what it meant to fight humans who were no longer pretending to be helpless diplomats. "Sir," one of his soldiers reported, "all our weapons are offline. Communications are down. We can't contact our ships." "Use the backup systems," Vextar ordered. "The backup systems are also down. Whatever hit us affected all our electronic equipment." Vextar felt something he had never experienced before in his military career: genuine fear. The humans had been locked in detention cells with no weapons and no way to communicate with the outside. How had they managed to disable an entire military operation? The answer came when the command center's main door exploded inward. Lisa Brooks stepped through the smoking doorway, carrying what looked like a small briefcase, but was actually a directed energy weapon built from communication equipment and industrial components. "General Vextar," she said calmly, "you are under arrest for violation of the Nexus Station Neutrality Accords." Behind her came John Carter, Nancy Price, and Rick Johnson. They moved like soldiers, not diplomats. Their improvised weapons were aimed at the Zephyrian soldiers who had been guarding the command center. "This is impossible," Vextar growled. "You had no weapons. Our scanners detected nothing." "Your scanners detected exactly what we wanted them to detect," John replied. "The problem with your thinking, General, is that you assume weapons have to look like weapons." Nancy moved to the command center's main computer terminal, connecting her hacked device to the system. "I'm taking control of station communications," she announced. "All Zephyrian ships are being ordered to withdraw immediately or face defensive action from the station's automated systems. The station has no weapons," one of the Zephyrian soldiers protested. "It does now," Rick said with a smile. He had spent the past hour converting the station's industrial equipment into improvised weapon systems. Cargo loading beams became directed energy weapons. Construction robots became military drones. Even the station's garbage disposal system had been turned into a projectile launcher. Administrator Krell, who had been cowering in the corner of the command center, suddenly stood up straighter. "Ambassador Carter, the station's security forces are reporting that 73 Zephyrian soldiers have surrendered. The remainder are trapped in sealed sections with no functioning equipment." "What about casualties?" John asked, concerned about the civilian population. "No civilian casualties reported. Minor injuries only among the Zephyrian forces." General Vextar looked around the command center, seeing his soldiers disarmed and his mission in ruins. "How?" he asked simply. John holstered his improvised weapon and faced the general. "You made the same mistake that everyone makes when dealing with humans. You assumed that because we came without weapons, we came defenseless." "You had no weapons," Vextar insisted. "We had something better than weapons, General. We had knowledge. Every human learns from childhood how to solve problems with whatever materials are available. We've been making tools and weapons from ordinary objects for thousands of years." Lisa stepped forward. "Your people think in terms of strength versus weakness. You see a species that's smaller and less physically powerful, and you assume they're easy prey. You never considered that intelligence and creativity might be more dangerous than claws and fangs." Nancy finished establishing control over the station systems. "Sir, I have communication with Earth. Admiral Thompson is standing by." The main screen activated, showing Admiral Sarah Thompson's face. She looked relieved to see John and his team alive and in control. "John, report," she said immediately. "Mission accomplished, Admiral. The Zephyrian military operation has been neutralized. No casualties among station personnel or civilians. 87 Zephyrian soldiers in custody. Outstanding work. Our fleet is still 2 days out, but it sounds like you don't need rescue anymore." General Vextar spoke up from where he stood under guard. "This changes nothing, human. My fleet still outnumbers yours. War is still inevitable." Admiral Thompson's expression grew cold. "General, I'm afraid you're misinformed about the current military situation. While you were playing games on Nexus Station, our intelligence services have been busy." A new image appeared on the screen, showing a star map with dozens of red dots. "Those are the locations of your secret military bases. We've known about all of them for months. We've also been tracking your fleet movements and supply lines." "Impossible," Vextar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "General," John said quietly, "humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We've learned that the best way to win a war is to avoid fighting it at all. While you were building up your military forces, we were building up our intelligence networks." Admiral Thompson continued the explanation. "We know about your alliance with the hegemony. We know about your plans to attack the Centauri colonies. We know about your weapons development programs. We know everything. But more importantly," John added, "every other species in this sector now knows everything too. We've shared all our intelligence with the Galactic Council." Your military buildup has been exposed as aggressive expansion, not defensive preparation. General Vextar's scales began shifting to a pale, defeated gray. You're bluffing. Nancy, show him the Council's response, John said. A new message appeared on the screen, bearing the official seal of the Galactic Council. It was a formal declaration of economic sanctions against the Zephyrian Empire, signed by representatives of 15 different species. Trade embargo, travel restrictions, and exclusion from all neutral stations, Nancy read aloud. Effective immediately until the Zephyrian government agrees to withdraw all military forces from disputed territories and submit to council mediation. Rick stepped forward. General, I'm a trade specialist. Let me explain what this means for your people. 60% of your food comes from other worlds. 40% of your industrial materials are imported. Your entire economy depends on galactic trade. This is economic warfare, Maxtar protested. This is the consequence of choosing military expansion over diplomatic cooperation, John replied. You wanted to solve your problems with force. The galaxy has decided to solve its problems with economic pressure. The next few hours past Q